Welcome to this first workshop session of our Research and Innovation Days. My name is Peter Hertwig. I am Head of Unit in the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. I have the pleasure to moderate today's session. We will talk about the tips and tricks for preparing a proposal for Horizon Europe. And I'm sure that this is of interest to many of you. We are very pleased to see that you have joined us already in such big numbers. I see that we are around 560 at the moment, and the figure is still increasing. So thank you very much for the interest. I quickly introduce the panel that we have today. So I am here with two of my colleagues, my Deputy Head of Unit, Isabel Fergara, and the other colleague, Bénédicte Charbonnel, who will give very brief presentations on the main aspects of proposal writing. But I want to welcome in particular our external speaker, Ms. Ana Carvalho, who is the head of unit in the National Innovation Agency of Portugal, and she is at the same time a national contact point and a representative for Portugal in the Horizon Europe Program Committee. I should also announce that this is not just a session for presenting, but it is supposed to be very interactive. The presentations will be short, and we will have hopefully enough time for a question and answer session at the end of this workshop. For the asking your questions and sending us your comments, the channel to be used is Slido. And I would ask you to take note of the code that you need. So you either go to slido.com and key in the RIDays WS01, or you use the QR code on your mobile phone. And then you can start, as of now, immediately to put in your questions and remarks. So don't wait till the start of the question and answer sessions. As soon as you have a question related to a presentation, put it in there, and we will come back to it at the end of the session. I should also say that when you do this, maybe you look first at the questions that are already there, and if there is already the same questions that you want to ask or a very similar one, don't put it a second time, but vote on the question of the others, and we will at the end in the question and answer session go through the questions in the order of number of votes. I think I can leave it at that for the introduction, and I will hand over directly to our first speaker, Isabel Fergara, who will give an introduction on proposal writing and talk about the first of the three evaluation criteria that you should have in mind when writing your proposal. So please, over to Isabel.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning to all. Yes, so it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I will tell you some hints and tips and tricks to write your proposal in Horizon Europe, and in particular under the section 1 that covers the excellence criterion. Bénédicte later on will cover the sections that are related to the other two evaluation criteria, the impact and the quality of the implementation. So just to start with the key principles that you need to have in mind at the time you start preparing your proposal. So these are principles that are related to the different evaluation criteria and to the different parts of the proposal. So as you know, we have published now for some time now a proposal template for Horizon Europe. It includes some changes in comparison with the template in Horizon 2020, but the most important one is that we have tried to include instructions, clear instructions of the information that you need to include in the proposal. So perhaps you noticed that the proposal template is longer now. It includes more text for you to read, but this doesn't mean that you need to include more information in comparison with Horizon 2020. What we have done is to improve the instructions for you. So the key principles that you need to take into account to write the proposal in Horizon Europe. The first one, and this is particularly important for Pillar 2, is that you are answering a call for proposals. So you are sending your proposal to a topic which is very prescriptive in most of the cases. So you need to take care that your proposed work is in scope with the topic that you are submitted your proposal. This is very important, in particular in Pillar 2. It's not so important in those bottom-up calls in which we open topics which are not prescriptive, so we are open for ideas. Yeah. Then, and this is related mainly to the excellence criteria, you need to demonstrate that your idea is ambitious and goes beyond the state of the art. And for this, you will find instructions in the proposal template how to demonstrate this. We will also assess the scientific methodology, and you must take into account in practically all of the topics in Horizon Europe that your work is interdisciplinary, that you take into account the gender dimension in research and innovation, and that you also take into account open practices when you design your scientific methodology. Then, in particular for the criterion impact, you should show in your project how you will contribute to the outcomes and impacts described in the topic description, the topic that you are answering to. And this is what we call in Horizon Europe the pathway to impact. And for this, Benedict will come later on with more information. We will also assess the measures that you propose to maximize the impact of your proposal, what we call the plan for dissemination and exploitation, including communication activities. And then finally, and this is related to the third evaluation criteria, you should demonstrate the quality of your work plan, the resources, and the quality of the participants. So these are the key principles that you always need to take into account. And in addition, in most of our calls, we also consider policy aspects or horizontal aspects that you must take into account as part of one of the evaluation criteria. So you need to be aware that in Horizon Europe, we apply open science across the program. So this is something that you will need to pay a lot of attention when writing your proposal. The gender dimension in research and innovation content is applicable in all topics in Horizon Europe unless it is mentioned in the topic that this is not relevant. If you do not find a sentence in the topic description that for this topic the gender dimension in research and innovation content is not relevant, this means that you have to take into account this. We have a novelty in Horizon Europe, what we call the pathway to impact, the measures to maximize impact, and then we are also paying attention to artificial intelligence. So if you are using artificial intelligence in your work, I am not talking about developing, so making research on artificial intelligence, that this is also important. But if you are using artificial intelligence as part of your methodology, you will have to demonstrate the robustness of this of the technology that you use. And then in specific topics, you may also find that other aspects are important, like, for instance, the inclusion of social science and humanities. So for the excellent criterion, so I will be very brief, but for the excellent criterion, we will ask our experts to assess the project objectives and the scientific methodology. These are the two main aspects that the experts will assess in the excellent criterion. And when we brief the experts, in particular, when we brief them on how to assess the project objectives, we are asking them to answer for every particular proposal whether the proposal includes clear and pertinent objectives to the topic, whether the objectives are measurable and verifiable, whether the objectives are realistically achievable, and they also need to assess whether the proposed work is ambitious and goes beyond the state of the art, if it includes groundbreaking research and innovation, if it includes novel concepts and approaches, if it will develop new products, services, or business and organization models. And then we also ask the experts to assess the research and innovation maturity in line with the type of actions that is asked in the topic description. So different type of actions. So we expect different maturity in the research and innovation content in different type of actions. And for the scientific methodology, what we are asking the experts to assess is if it is sound and clear, if the scientific methodology includes the concepts, model, and assumptions that underpin the work, if this is clear and sound. If we ask also experts whether it is clear how expertise and methods from different disciplines will be brought together and integrated in pursuit the objectives. So that means that in most of our topics, we are looking for interdisciplinary approaches. If in your particular proposal, you think that an interdisciplinary approach is not needed, you need to justify why, and then we will ask experts whether your justification is credible. We will also ask whether the gender dimension in research and innovation content has been properly taken into account, whether open science practices are implemented as an integral part of the proposed scientific methodology, whether the research data management is properly addressed, and if the topic includes other aspects like the integration of social science and humanities, whether these disciplines are properly addressed. With this, I finish my slides, Peter. So, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabel. I see that many of our attendees are still joining us, and I think it would be good if we could show again the credentials for accessing the Slido. So the colleagues in the background, can you bring up the link to Slido again, please? So I said in the introduction that we will have an interactive session, and the possibility for you to ask questions is via the Slido channel. And please take note either of the QR code that is shown here now, or you go to Slido in a browser and you type in the code RIDAYSWS01, and then you are able to put your comments and ask your questions. And we have a question and answer session at the end where we will go through them in the order of number of likes. So if you see that a question that you want to ask is already there, don't put it again, but vote on the question that is already there. Okay, thank you for taking note of this. And I will now go to the second speaker. Bénédicte Charbonnel from my service will go into the other two criteria that are used for evaluating all our proposals. Bénédicte, please.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning to everybody. So I will continue this presentation with the following evaluation criterion, which is the criterion on impact. So that's the second evaluation criteria. That's the second part of the proposal template you will use to write and submit your proposal. And this section starts with this new notion of pathways towards impact that Isabel already introduced briefly to you. So what you'll be invited to think about and to describe in your proposal is how your specific project will make a contribution towards what we call the expected outcome and impacts of the work program. So in the work program, you have, of course, the topics to which you are applying, and at the level of the topic, you will have a description of the expected outcomes. And at a higher level, in the work program, we have what we call destinations, which is, let's say, chapters that are gathering a number of topics. And here you will have at that level a description of what we call the impacts, which are the effects expected on long, wider term perspective. So you need to identify these outcomes and impacts, and you need to explain how you want to contribute specifically to those. So what the experts will do is that they will look if your contribution, what you are proposing to do, is credible. And here it's really important for you to keep in mind that you should not describe really tenuous link referring to the field of research in general. What we want to hear and what evaluators will perceive positively is really the specific contribution of your specific project toward those outcomes and impacts. Of course, it could be scientific contribution, economical, technological, societal. It all depends about the topic and about the specificities of your project. Then in this section on the pathway towards impact, you will also have to think about the potential barriers that may determine whether you will be able to reach these outcomes and impacts. So here you have to identify any kind of barriers that could be other research and innovation works, regulatory environment, user behavior, anything that could make it more difficult for you to reach the outcomes and impact. And you need first to identify them and to propose any kind of measures to mitigate them. And last but not least, in this section about the pathway towards impact, you are invited to assess and describe the scale and the significance of your project contribution toward the outcome and impacts. And here we ask about something a bit more quantified. So you will have to include baselines, benchmarks, assumptions that you use for these estimates. So when we talk about the scale, we mostly refer to how widespread the benefits are. And when we talk about significance, we're more referring to the importance, the value of these benefits. So for all of these elements, and as Isabel already said, we have put really guidance in the proposal template. So we invite you to read it and to use it to really write your contribution. So once you have described your pathway towards impact, you are invited in the second subsection of the impact criterion to focus on the measures, the concrete measures you will implement to maximize this impact. And this is a notion that probably a lot of you are already familiar with, of dissemination, exploitation, and communication. So here you are invited to include in your proposal a draft plan for dissemination, exploitation, and communication activities. So what should you write in there? You need, of course, to describe your plan measures for dissemination, exploitation, and communication. And the expert will look at whether those measures are suitable for the nature of your project. Of course, different projects on different fields with different size, different objectives will not have the same type of measures. Experts will look at the quality of these measures. Are they of good quality? Are they concrete? And here again, it's something important. We want concrete measures that are suited to your project. And they will look if the measures are concrete and will be implemented both during the course of the project, but also after its ends. You will also need to identify the target groups, who you want to reach with your dissemination, exploitation, and communication measures. Is it the scientific community? Is it the end users, some financial actors, the general public, the politicians, the decision makers? You need to identify the target group for each measures you want to implement. And last but not least, you need already to think at the proposal stage about your strategy for managing the intellectual property. It needs to be already addressed at the level of the proposal. So I have an example coming in the next slide, because probably all what I said still seems a bit vague. So here in this slide, you have, let's say, more visual example of what we mean about this overall notion of project pathway towards impact. And here we are in a completely example we have set up about, which is a project about mobility. And in the work program, we have at the level of the destination, at the general level, one impact that is in the green box you see on the top of the slide at the right. And this impact is seamless, smart, inclusive, and sustainable mobility services. And in the box at the left of it, you have the outcome that is also stated in the work program, which is innovative accessibility and logistics solutions applied by the European transport sector. So this is what the work program is giving to us. But of course, we are in the framework of a specific project. And in the framework of our specific project, we had the specific results that you see in the bottom of the slide. The result of our project is that we successfully demonstrated at large scale a system for advanced forecasting and proactive airport passenger management. So this is what we have done in our project. We developed this system and we tested it at large scale with 3 airports. Then, of course, we developed some dissemination and exploitation measures to present our system to other airports, let's say, and to communicate about it and to disseminate our results and find other airports that could be interested in implementing it in themselves. And here we are reaching the expected, the contribution of our project to the outcome that is written in the work program, because let's say at least 9 European airports will adopt the system that we have demonstrated during our project. So this is something at medium scale happening during the course of our project or just after the end of it. This is our contribution to the specific expected outcome of the program. And regarding our contribution to the expected impact, that would be that over the long term, thanks to our system and its adoption by many airports, it will increase the maximum passenger capacity by 15%, leading to, let's say, 28% of the reduction of infrastructure costs. So this is a logic you will have to apply in your proposal, identify your project key results, which dissemination and exploitation measure you will put in place so that it can really bring a specific contribution to the outcomes and impacts of the work program. And with this slide, I'm finishing with the second evaluation criterion, impact, and I'm going now to the last one, which is the quality and efficiency of the implementation. So here again, this section of the proposal template is divided in 2 subsections. And first, you will need to describe your work plan and the efforts and the resources you want to commit. So you will need to describe what you will be doing. It means that you will have to provide a list of work packages, a description of each of them, what will be your deliverables, what are going to be the critical risk of your project, and which resources are associated to it. What evaluators will look at is the list of questions you see here on the screen. Is this work plan of good quality? Is it effective? Does it include sufficient quantified information so that the progress can be easily monitored? As its logical structure, for example, regarding the timing of the work packages? Are the resources allocated to each of the work package in line with the objectives and the deliverables? And are the critical risks properly identified and good mitigation measures proposed? And finally, you will have in the second section of the proposal template regarding implementation, you will have to focus this time on your consortium and on the participants. So you will need to describe your consortium and explain if it's and how it is matching the objectives of your project. You will need to show that together all the partners are bringing the necessary disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge so that you will be able to implement your project. You need to explain that if your consortium members have expertise in open science practices or gender aspects of research and innovation, you will have to present that. If your topic is flagged as relevant for social sciences and humanities, you will need to show that your consortium include indeed expertise in these disciplines. You will have to explain if it is relevant that the partners have the access to the critical infrastructures they need to carry out their activities. You will have to explain how the partners are complementing each other and why those specific participants have been chosen to be part of the consortium. And you really need to explain which will be the contribution of each of them. Does each of your participants have a valid role, adequate resources to carry out this activity? This is something that the expert will look at. And if relevant, and if you have a industrial commercial involvement in your project, you will have to explain how this will be carried out. So I think with this, it's the end of my part of the presentation, focusing on the two last evaluation criterion. And I think we can go to the next speaker. We will give you a bit of a different perspective on the proposal template and the way to write your proposal for Horizon Europe.
Thank you very much, Benedict. I think before we go to the last speaker, it is time for launching our little poll that we have prepared, because we are now, in terms of attendees, reaching over 1,000 participants, and you want to know a bit better who is there behind their screens. So can we please launch the Slido poll in a very simple question? And please, participants, go again to Slido and reply to this very basic question. Here we go. So the question is, have you participated in any call for proposals in Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020? Just to get a feeling who of you is a real newcomer and who is already more experienced. Okay, I think the figures are stabilizing very quickly. We see that indeed the majority of you has some experience. There are a number of newcomers, and there is also 10% of the participants who finally think that is maybe not for you to participate here. But that's also good that this message is brought over. Thank you very much. I think we stop this here and we come to our last speaker. So giving us a bit the point of view of a member state representative. So Anabela Carvalho, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter, for the warm welcome for Portuguese NCP and delegates. So it's really a big pleasure to be here to share and to learn. I am Anabela Carvalho. I came from the National Innovation Agency in Portugal, where we are the main responsibles for following and supporting Pillar 2 and Pillar 3 of Horizon Europe. In Portugal, we have a system where the NCPs are also representatives at the program committees, and this gives us, we believe, an important added value for our daily work. So what are we going to see here now? It's a different perspective of what we do as an NCP on a daily basis. So NCP, what else? What are we going to explore? What are we going to explore is something like what do you do? Who we are, what do we do? So we have to do the awareness, we have to to support our community. So we have to understand the main features of Horizon Europe. We have to deliver and we have to digest the main information. We have to disseminate, we have to awareness, we have to guide and train, we have to explore the work program, support the main functionalities of the funding and tenders, and also help on partnership and cooperation. Of course, also some countries have, others don't have it. It depends on the NCP system, the help on the proposal check. But who we are. You can see who we are at the Funding and Tenders portal. We have here the link, so search for us. And above all, you have to also know that we are based on very clear principles of trust, confidentiality, and non-conflict of interests. And this is important for you, important for us, important for research in Europe. When we talk about NCP, we talk as a person, as a human being that is a tailor-made for a guidance tailor-made. So we have to disentangle the big picture. So we get the big picture with European policies, then we go through the strategic plan. So when we start working with a client, with a stakeholder in a proposal, we have to frame the main ideas that are behind it. So what are the big policies behind it? What are the big strategic research and innovation options for the first programmatic years of Horizon Europe? Then we go through to the work program and we see the destinations, as Benedict and Isabel were saying. And then, of course, the research and innovation topics. Where is the money? How we can get it? How we can approach it in the best way? And be also assured of something. Do not look, we have to tell our stakeholders, go beyond sometimes the area that you are looking for. Sometimes you have other opportunities just in another side area. So the NCP also can highlight this. So just something that for an NCP is fundamental is to tell to our stakeholder, time. Time is your best ally. So start early. And start early, how? Who is your NCP? Get in contact. Discuss the work program. Digest all the related documents. Explore who are the key players in your area of interest. Build the project concept and the best consortia. And write carefully, very carefully, and very clearly your proposal. Sometimes the details on the excellence are so detailed that you get lost in the written and in all the sentences. So the NCP can help you digesting the information at some point in getting it simpler. So the NCP is a tailor-made guiding person to help you in these different stages, and trust it what's defined the relationship with you. Some tips at the strategic level, very, very broad in sense. So your ambition must be aligned with Horizon Europe. So this is clear. This must be clear for all of us. We have systemic innovation over the place. So we have to address innovation in a different way, in an integrated approach. And we look to other opportunities in missions, in cross-cluster opportunities, in European partnerships. Again, start early. And one thing that sometimes we try to do, you may have a fantastic idea that were not funded in Horizon 2020, but please do not try to fit this under Horizon Europe at any price. Please be aware that this is important, and nurture, invest and promote your network, your collaboration network. When we talk on practical tips, what we have is something that concerning the consortia, we know the rules, we know the minimum rules, but is the minimum enough? Let's make the balance. Is the minimum enough? Probably not. We have to look at it very carefully. Choose the partners very carefully and clarify what is the role of each of the partner. This is like a bouquet of flowers, but they have to complement each other. They have to feed each other's needs. Again, if you are the coordinator, you have to be inclusive, you have to be democratic, diplomatic, but you take the final decision, and this is most important. And you show that the consortium is the best, the balance, the value chain. So this is always the things that you have to look for. When you talk the proposal development, you really have to read very carefully all the information, all the word counts. And the goal is the perfect match between the topic, the idea, and the template. So you have this triangle to fit in and to be creative and clear about it. And again, budget with detail, be precise, and train yourself in what we say, the Brussels speaking language. Sometimes we have to switch a little bit the language to better channel, to put our ideas up front. Again, the template is your mantra. As Isabel was saying, we have all the explanations in the template, but you can add a few extra explanatory subsections. Of course, that you have to comply with the page limits, but you have imagination and you can create new things to show that you can add added value to your proposal. One of the things that is most important when you are starting and you are experienced is to register as an expert at the EC database. And this is a study that was done by the Danish Agency of Science and Higher Education, where we got some testimonials from experts and what they say from being experts. So they get to the best contacts. They get to the state of play of their knowledge base. They also get to the good proposals, how they are structured. So this is a very, very good way to start working in Horizon Europe. So just almost to finish, do not forget, the first feeling is important. An evaluator, an expert is a human being. So we feel, we start reading, so we have to be catchy in our first page. We have to be clear, to explain the details, and to use images, to explain our project in a nutshell, in a very clear, concise, and precise image, for instance. The best consortia. You can have international partners, of course, if this is important, if this is important for the research field. You have to fill in the value chain, you have to have experience and complementarity. Again, all the word counts, so read carefully everything. Mandatory is one thing, encourage is another thing, but at the end of the day, almost is the same thing. So please, another thing, be where the things happen. So be where the initiatives are, be present, be there, make yourself in the ecosystem, make yourself visible in the ecosystem. And of course, see what are the players, the key players, go to the Cordis project database, to the Horizon dashboard information, all the partner search information, all the events. This is all truly important to get you to the edge of what's going on in Europe. And to finalize, NCPs, as an NCP, our job is to support. So, but we also need to capacity ourselves, capacity building, awareness, networking, and this is a two-way challenge. So NCPs are also involved in thematic networks, and these networks deliver services to stakeholders. It is important for now on to get some attention to the services that are going to be put in place by the NCP and the NCP networks. Today, we have a project, Bridge to Horizon Europe, for NCP coordinators that is coordinated by our colleagues in CDTI, Spain. And you can find there some information that is relevant for you. For instance, we are now supporting the brokerage events that are going to take place next week during the Info Days for Horizon Europe calls in Cluster 2. So this is important. Get in contact to your NCP. Please get some insights on the pitch that you have to do in your matchmaking during the brokerage. again, some insights on your profile, how to fill in the way that is appealing to another person in another place in Europe. But first, and to finalize, contact your NCP. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annabella. And we go without further ado into the questions and answers. So we will bring up the Slido session. We have about 6 minutes left, so that is a real challenge. And we go through the questions in the order of likes. I maybe start already replying to 2 of the questions. Will the session be recorded and available afterwards? Yes. Will the slides be available? No, not on this conference website, but we have 2 extended webinars where we go into many more details that are available, and the links to these extended webinars, including the slides, will be put now into the chat. So please go to the chat and copy paste these links to these existing webinars. And now let's go into the other questions. So first question with a lot of votes. Given the shorter proposal in RIA-IA, page limit 45 in comparison to H2020, how long do you expect the work package description to be? Isabel, please, very short.
Yes, very shortly. So in the proposal template, we have an indicative page number per section, so you can follow this. But you also need to take into account that many topics now that are being open have an exception in this page limit. So we have already taken into account whether areas in which we have big consortia, and then the page limit is a bit larger. So you need to check your topic description. Yeah.
Second question, difference between impact and outcomes. Benedict.
Yes, so the impact and outcomes, the difference is that outcomes are defined, let's say, over the medium term. That's the effects that could happen during the course of the project or shortly after, and you will find the expected outcomes at the level of your topic in the description of the work program. Regarding the impacts, it's more the wider effects over the long term, and those impacts are a bit more general, and you will find them at the level of the destination, meaning at the level of a chapter that is gathering a number of topics.
Okay, annotated model grant agreement. The issue is that this will be the model grant agreement for the current programming period is corporate, meaning applicable to all EU funding programs. And also the annotated version will be applicable to all funding programs, and it requires internal coordination, so it will become available hopefully by September. Next question, can we upload letters of support? Isabel, do you want to take it?
Yes, only if specifically mentioned in the topic description. So you will be able to upload annexes in the system. If not, it's not possible. Just mention the intention. So we are not asking for proofs of intention. Just describe who is going to perform the activities in the proposal.
Okay, again on the page limit, do we have experience which sections are too lengthy normally?
You mean in actual proposal in Horizon 2020?
That's how I understand the question, yes.
Yeah. No, the variety is large, so we don't have a pattern here. Yeah. No.
Okay, next question about the summary canvas. It is not mandatory. Can we confirm that whether it's mandatory or not? Section 2.3.
Well, I would say yes. It's not mandatory in the sense that we will not reject your proposal if it is not included, but it's something that it will help the experts a lot to evaluate your proposal. So it's very recommendable to include it. Yeah.
For the next question on the gender dimension, I suggest we don't reply here because it would require more time. I would invite you to look at the second webinar where we have gone into all these aspects, and there is a long part dealing with this gender dimension. So please look at the existing webinar. The same for the next question. I take the next one. Does the proposal need to address all the points of the scope or only some of them?
If it is for me, this is something that you need to check within the info days for every cluster and topics. Yeah, so they will be in a better position to answer for every specific topic. Yeah.
Next question on AI. Are all projects expected to include use AI unless explicitly mentioned otherwise? I think here the reply is no, but please confirm.
Confirm, yes.
So it's only if you use AI in your research methodology, you have to give some explanation. Should rather a project management expert be the coordinator or a scientific person? Interesting question. Isabel?
Yes, yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer. This depends on how you structure your proposal and the activities. So it's your decision, yeah. So maybe Annabella can say something more, but it's
Annabella, do you want to come in, Annabella?
Yes, I want to come in just to say, don't be afraid. If you have a good consortia, you can be the leader with less experience. But you have to start. If you are a woman, go for it also. Don't be afraid and go for it.
Okay, thank you very much. There are still many interesting questions, and we will, of course, download all these questions from Slido and analyze them. But I am afraid we have to stick very much to the schedule, and it's already 1 minute past. The organizers urge us to stop. So thank you very much to the speakers in the first instance, but also to everybody attending for the interesting questions. And I hope to see you in some of the other workshops. We have 2 more in this village house, as we call it. The next one is on the model grant agreement, actually. And then later in the afternoon, we have one on the funding and tenders portal details on how to handle this one. Thank you very much and all the best, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.